In this video, I'm going to cover how to generate a coverage report. This shows you what lines in your JavaScript program are covered by your unit tests and which lines aren't. So this is going to be a continuation of a previous video that I published to YouTube called JavaScript Testing Patterns and Best Practices. I'll link to this in the notes below the YouTube video. But you should watch this video first. I talk about using the JavaScript class functions to generate classes, and then how to do encapsulation, where you wrap your dependencies inside the class, and for easier mocking for creating unit tests. So when you're creating unit tests, the ideal is to get to 100% test coverage. And by using the design and test patterns in that previous video, it makes it fairly easier than other patterns to get to 100% test coverage. And so if you do a bunch of unit tests, you'll probably end up pretty easily like in the 60 to 80% range. But then getting that last 20% can be pretty difficult, even just knowing how to approach it. And that's where coverage reports come in and are really handy. So to give an example for today, I am going to use the Simple Ledger post office server that the Permissionless Software Foundation is working on. This is a new repository that we've forked from the SLP Foundation, and we're now in the process of refactoring a lot of the code, taking external functions, putting them in classes, creating unit tests, and then using the coverage report to gauge our progress. So what I'm going to use for example today is this. This is the code. Here's the Simple Ledger post office repo. I'm in the source lib network.js library. So this is a network library. The way this was written is it had all these external functions. This function here, validate SLP inputs function. So see, these are standalone functions. That's why it's const, and then it becomes an arrow function, and then they're exported here as a list of exports. And instead what we want to do is we want to just have one export, which is the class constructor. And so what we're starting to do is here's our class constructor, and we're moving those standalone functions into the class as methods. So this was a function outside of the class. I just moved it into the class, and we've got these unit tests that I started writing for it. And so these unit tests, they test this function, and now the next step is to move these other functions that are outside the class into the class, and then write unit tests for them using the patterns in that previous video. So let me show the code coverage generation. This is a function of the NYC, which is a coverage reporting NPM library. And so I created this coverage report script. So if I just do npm test, it'll run all the unit tests, which right now we don't have very many. And you can see the coverage. Right now, that network library has less than 40% coverage. And if I run npm run coverage report, it'll generate a coverage report. And so if I go into the post office repository, there will be a new directory here called coverage. So I'm in the same directory as here. So you can see there's a coverage directory here. So if I go into that coverage directory, there is now this index.html file, and if I open that up in the browser, this is the coverage report. So I can drill down into that source lib folder and the network library, and I can see here a little bit less than 40%, so that matches the output in the command line. And you can see every line that's covered and every line that's not covered. So like for instance, this line was covered once, this line was covered twice, that's the 2x. I only have 2 unit tests. So both tests cover this line, and only one of them covers this line. And then you can see, so this is our, let me make this bigger. here's our class constructor, and you can see all these functions outside of the class do not have code coverage. So this is a great visual representation of the work that needs to be done. We need to move this function into the class, write unit tests, and then we need all these red lines to go away and turn into these 1x and 2x, these green lines essentially. But anyways, just this little trick of running the coverage report. A lot of developers, they don't know how to run coverage reports, and so this is a great visual medium for drilling down. So it's just this coverage report script. You just run it, and then you open that index.html file and drill down into the library that you're looking at. So that's how you generate a coverage report, and then use it to inform yourself as to what unit tests you need to write next, and what lines of code that you still need to test.